Hello and welcome to Coffee and Conversation here on BTCN. I'm your host, Shashank Bengali, and I'm here with Winston Nesfield. He's a partner with PwC Strategy and Winston, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And you're here at the FinTech Festival talking about small and medium enterprises. Tell us, what are the biggest challenges that SMEs face and what do you do to help them solve them?
The way I start the conversation is being an SME is really hard. And you have to balance and keep things in balance across several dimensions. There's the financing, there's attracting people, competing with the big boys and the big brands. And then there's the how do I partner and grow? Everyone wants to be the next unicorn, but they are dealing with the day-to-day realities of keeping a business afloat. So we have been thinking about how to help more comprehensively. So not just about credit, not just about, say, like-minded trade associations, but how do we offer a platform or ecosystem to help them?
So there are tons of banks and other companies that provide, say, financial services to SMEs, but you're talking about a whole suite of solutions. So how do they all work together?
Well, we are co-creating that right now, and we are working with like-minded partners, and a lot of these are private sector players, banks, advisory firms, the government, and we believe that there's an opportunity to put things on a platform to make it easier. In a past life, I offered credit. I was head of SME finance for Australia's second largest non-bank lender. And we had a smart solution, but it was a credit solution. And the challenge we had is that we would offer this to SMEs, but they couldn't get over some of those other items of balance in order to really take us up on our credit.
Right. And in this region, in Southeast Asia, SMEs employ the vast majority of people. I think worldwide they employ the vast majority.
Over 90% of the population works in some way, shape, or form for an SME.
So when you look at the economic impact that can happen when you leverage this broad base of employment, what do you see the future look like for these companies?
Well, I think there's an economic dividend, but there's also a social dividend. We're seeing pockets of unease and unrest. And I believe it's because the middle sector, largely populated by SMEs, have not been seeing the returns on their work, on their sweat. So if we can get SMEs growing, it's about overall economic growth. I think it's about social balance. And we can avoid, I believe, some of the unrest that we're seeing. And we can see increased percentage of GDPs. Despite being 90% of the population, in most economies, they are well below 50% of the GDP. I think governments would love to see that number increase, and SMEs would be better off for it.
You made an example earlier comparing it to a revolution in shipping, and what you see that as the comparison. Talk a bit about that.
I believe that technology doesn't solve everything, but we are at a tipping point. Because when we provide services on a platform that's easy to consume, remember that over 50%, I think the number is 60-something% of SMEs, 68%, don't have access to a computer. We find that in this forum, Singapore FinTech, mind-blowing. But we're talking about the rural areas of Indonesia, across the archipelago. We're talking about Philippines. You know, they're not able to just dial in on a 4G, dare I say 5G line and access the service. So we have to make that easier.
So if I'm a small business owner in Indonesia, like you said, for example, and I don't have access to a great 4G tower, I don't have a computer, I'm kind of just getting a little bit on my phone here and there, is there potential in the FinTech revolution for me? What services can I bank on now? What can I see in the future that will help my business grow?
Well, we do believe there needs to be a conduit, and it's probably the phone. And we believe it needs to be as simple as that in order to match, buy and sell, and find solutions, find partners, and find information. Access to information is one of the biggest disadvantages that SMEs face. So if we can give them the information they need in a format that is easy to consume, we believe you'll start to see those multipliers.
And you mentioned this is a multi-sector approach, private, public. You've got not only banking, but other types of lenders, technology companies, governments. Talk about how all these pieces work together, and of course consulting firms as well. How do all these players get together and make this happen?
Now the container technology in the 1970s was groundbreaking. It truly led to an explosion of global trade. But it only came about when you had the ships, the trucks, and all players willing to standardize around 20 and 40-foot containers. And that was the only way to get goods from point A to point B along the whole chain in a systematic fashion. That is the tipping point that we're talking about when we look at SME solutions. We believe that if you can create this platform that is consistent with providers of finance, buyers and sellers are inputting the same data, regardless of whether you're dealing with an F&B coffee shop or whether you're dealing with mangoes from Indonesia. We need to have consistency of information flowing through this platform in order to allow that ease of access and that adoption. And that is the technology we believe that exists today. And we are experimenting with Singapore, Philippine, and Indian governments about creating such a network called Business Without Borders, or BSB.
I see, so that would tie together businesses from these three countries and try to get them working on a standardized platform.
Both G2B, government procurement to buyers, as well as ultimately B2B. Large institutional buyers, I believe, want to do business with SMEs. They just find it difficult. So if we can create not a platform to replace the existing associations, but to sit underneath them and give them this end-to-end capability, you can create that container analogy where you have a consistent way of getting ideas and SMEs from the point of selling something to the institutional buyers who want to do business with them, but find it difficult today.
And of course, buyers not only in their home country, but across borders. Once you get the platform, anybody from anywhere can plug in and find products that they're looking for from anywhere.
Yeah, we find, and depends upon the country, but only 15% or so of SMEs ever dare to venture abroad. And an interesting study was done that says those who do actually fare better because they're slightly more diversified from the cycles of one country. So we believe one of the growth factors is getting more SMEs to dare to go cross-border. And if we can help them by connecting countries and SMEs, then we can help solve that problem and I think make SMEs more robust.
And what's the role in all this of PwC strategy, and are you guys trying to be advocates for this idea, or trying to get groups together to work on the problem?
Well, the idea came from MAS. It came from the Singapore government. But we were one of the early proof of concept parties that helped MAS and IMDA go from ideation to a real business model. So our role was to drive that commercial reality and sustainability while the tech work stream was working on proving that we could create these trades that are consistent across countries. So we were in at the early stages as a proof of concept member, and now we're excited to take it forward.
Well, Winston, thanks so much for joining us. That's all the time we have, but I really appreciate it. Thanks for joining us on Coffee and Conversation on BTCN. I'm your host, Shashank Bengali, and we'll see you next time.